Welcome back to Riqueza podcast. Today we have a lovely special guest, Carmen Perez, the founder of Use Much app, a zero-based budgeting app. And not only that, they're an amazing creator on social media that provides financial literacy and education to the Gen Z and millennial community. So before, I introduce you, I would love for you to introduce yourself, because I feel like introductions from individuals are so much better than like the bios or anything like that.
Yeah, no. Well, thank you for having me on this platform. I greatly appreciate it, first and foremost. I'm going to come out the gate hot. Hi, everyone. My name is Carmen Perez. I am the founder of Make Real Sense, the money platform that you just mentioned, and also the app called Use Much. And Much is a social budgeting platform to help you break the paycheck to paycheck cycle by showing you, an easy way to save up to 10% of your take-home pay while connecting you with individuals on a similar path and journey, so you feel less isolated around your money journey. And yeah, that's it. My pronouns are she, her.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for doing that. When I started my career doing this like 2 years ago, finding people that talked about money, that are people of color and just diverse in this conversation, I was like, yes, I need to follow. And so I've been following along for a while. I know we've been connected for a while through, just like virtual connections, but this is actually the first time we're actually talking together.
Yeah, it is. And I love it. That's why I love the internet. It's like a wild place, and it's so amazing to be able to connect with like-minded individuals, at least.
Yeah. So I want to get started in learning more about you and your journey and where you found love for financial literacy and education.
Yeah. So quick background on just all things like money. I was terrible behind closed doors with money. I studied finance. I loved it in theory. It was just my thing. I love numbers, economics, like all of that. Just absolutely loved it. But behind closed doors, I could not get it together with my personal finances, like just a hot mess. So I'll give you the quick and dirty version of it. Up until 2016, I had like my finances were a complete hot mess. I had terrible credit. I was paying 18% interest on my car loan. I had a job offer rescinded from the company that you and I both worked at.
Oh, no way. No way. Okay.
I'm not going to call it out, but yes, I did my internships there, and then subsequently had some job offers there, and then had them peeled back because of my terrible credit, my bad credit report. No money saved, living paycheck to paycheck, maxing and relaxing every cent, and then bam, 2016, get hit with a student loan. I'm getting sued for it, $30,000, and as you know, working in the financial industry, like any judgment or bankruptcy, it's tough to, if you get let go from your job, walk across the street and get another job at a financial services firm, because they do check your credit report. That's the only way that they can measure if you are a flight risk to transfer other people's money out of, someone else's account into your own to cover your obligations. That's why they use your credit report in the financial services. If you are listening to this and even want to work in the financial services, they will run your credit. Not your score, doesn't necessarily care about that, but it's your report to see if there's any derogatory marks on that. So 2016 got sued. And then fast forward 2018, I paid off a bunch of debt. I paid off $57,000 of debt in the 2 years and 9 months at the start of getting sued. And that experience alone helped me realize, like, I want to lean more into teaching and helping individuals around their personal finances, because if this was overwhelming for me, if I was drowning behind closed doors in debt and not doing what I needed to do with my debt and not understanding my relationship with money and all these things that go into personal finance, because it is personal.
Right.
I could only imagine what other people were, feeling. And my friends, I was always that beacon for my friends, right? Like, hey, Carmen, do you know this? Do you know that? And yeah, I could help other individuals, but it was really during that time of like me hitting rock bottom with my personal finances that I was like, okay, I need to figure out a way to make this information accessible as I am learning it. And that's what
Right.
got me started into this whole world of personal finance education.
We're literally the same person.
Yeah,
Like very, very
literally.
similar. Because that was exactly my experience with money. Essentially, I studied finance. I love money in theory too. And then when it came to my own personal life and trauma, there was me getting $30,000 into credit card debt, and I didn't know what to do, and had to sell my home and start all over, and relearn my relationship with money. And you don't realize how important that is, and that it's psychological too.
Yep.
A lot of people think it's just the math, that you don't know how to do math, but no, it's trauma, it's psychological, it's understanding what's your relationship with money in the first place. Where does it come from? How does that impact you? And so you mentioned you paid off 57,000 in 2 years.
2 years and 9 months.
2 years and 9 months. How'd you do that?
One, I never shy away from this, especially on my own channel. Like, I was making good money, not enough to just pay that off very quickly.
Right, of course. We got bills. Bills.
Making good enough money to not have to have been doing what I was doing, which was maxing every single cent and not saving anything. I was literally the epitome of the 1 in 4 individuals that make 6 figures living paycheck to paycheck. In the city now, they say $100,000. That's what I was making at the time. Fast forward, I was making 50,000 at city. Then I changed careers, moved up to New York, making 80, and then I got sued when I was at 100. And now they say in New York that's like literally the equivalent of $80 or $38,000, something like wild.
Minimum wage.
Yeah,
Struggle.
That's another whole other conversation, right?
Yeah.
But like, through that little journey of like increasing my income, which was really good, something I highly suggest to be able to pay off your debt. The bigger the shovel, the better, right? But then I got a side hustle. I was doing like literally every odd job that I could to bring in extra income to be able to pay down this debt, especially the debt that I was getting sued for. So at the time, I had just started like on my debt-free journey. I was like, cool, I'm going to start paying down my debt. I'm going to get my life together in terms of my finances, because it was something that clicked in my head, and I think it was like the FIRE movement and getting introduced to that, that I was like, oh, this is an interesting concept. Like, people only a couple years older than me are, retiring early. This is interesting. Like, and I should be able to do this because I make really good money, but I'm like maxing every cent. Like, what's going on? And like, to your point, that's the psychology piece around it, which in retrospect, I wish I would have addressed first before doing any of this. Because it would have helped me understand and identify patterns that I needed to actively try to break, right? So when creators like ourselves speak about this, you all, like, it's one of the pieces of advice. If I could tell you to spend some time with your relationship with money, it'll be so helpful in the long term. Anywho, so was picking up every side job, everything that I could. Got the lawyer to buy me some time at the beginning of this journey, because I was already starting to save just a little bit and trying to pay down my debts. And then 3 months into wanting to, start tackling my money, that's when I got sued. I think the universe showed up and was like, all right, you really about this life? Yeah. Like, there's no coming back from this. You put this out there, now you got to show up, and you've got to constantly show up. So this forced me to show up in a way that I wasn't maybe necessarily ready for. And I'm thankful for it now, because it's been transformative. But I really needed, like I told you at the beginning, I had terrible credit, I had a job offer rescinded, nothing saved. All that wasn't enough for me to like switch gears. So I needed a mechanism to say, I got to stop you in your tracks here. And that's what the universe gave me, because I asked for it. So I just started paying and tackling that debt as quickly as possible. And the main thing that I used was obviously, one, having the income, getting the side hustles, cut what I could, while still being able to enjoy life just a little bit. Like, I still budgeted for date night and all of that. But we cut cable, did all the things, and all that extra income, tax refunds, any bonuses I got went directly into this pile to pay down this debt. And really the most transformative thing was just getting on a budget. Yeah. Really, that was, in my case, I was privileged enough to have the income with the side hustles too, the time to be able to do those. And for me, because of those other factors, getting on a budget for me was transformative, because I was so unorganized around my money. And that's to answer your question, that's how I essentially paid off the $57,000.
The whole journey.
A whole bunch of hustle, extra income, my income, and just staying fairly strict around my money and using cash envelopes. That's how I did it.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. The thing is, we have to decide. And usually life likes to throw shit at us. So for me, it was realizing that I hated my job where I was working at the investment bank. And I was like, I don't think I can do this. I'm getting underpaid and undervalued. And now I have almost $40,000 of credit card debt and a mortgage that I have to pay, but I don't know how I'm going to pay it. So I'm just going to have to figure out my life. And life usually likes to put you in a corner. And it's like, this is one of the things that you have to learn. This is a lesson that you keep ignoring, that you keep going through, and now you're going to have to face it. And a lot of people need to realize when you start to manage your money, you have to be ready. Yeah. Because I've met many people that want to, they've heard about, budgeting and saving and paying off, having a 401k and paying off debt and everything, but they don't take action because the psychological aspect or the fear or the culture, society, trauma, whatever it might be. And I've had people who have a consult with me, maybe they have one call with me, and then they ghost me because they're not ready. They're not ready emotionally, mentally, and most of the time they're not ever ready financially, right? And they need to face that fear that there's nothing we can do here because money is inevitable. Money is always going to be a part of our life in one way, shape, or form. And a lot of people think, oh, well, the money is evil, right? At the end of the day, money is just a currency.
It's a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool, and it's driven by us. We manage that tool, and if we suck at managing it, we got to get real with ourselves and figure it out, right? And I think that's what you and I both did in our own ways, and I'm glad that you have a platform to share that story. And not only that, but you created something out of your struggle, right? Like, I think we both did that in the sense, and as creators, we not only do we have the education to back us up, but we also have the struggle and our experience and be like, I've been there. Yeah. Don't do it. Just don't do it, right?
Don't do it. I literally tweeted that out the other day. Like, if I would have, in my 20s, just like, there was like a few lessons in terms of finances I wish I would have listened to. And it was literally one of them was just listening to the creators that kind of came before our time. Yeah. The only creators out there, because there was no existence of finfluencers, right? No. Like, I wish I just would have listened to their advice. Like the Clark Howards and the Susie Ormans of the world that I had to turn to back then. Those were, the only people kind of guiding me, or at least that I was tuning into. And I wish I would have listened. I wish I would have had access to people like you and I to be able to say, okay, these people have made all the mistakes. Let me just tune into their advice a little bit. Like you said, not only the education, because you don't need the education to necessarily do this, right?
Yeah. There's books out there.
There's all this stuff. Yeah. Yeah. You don't need the formal education. But we have that, plus like you said, the experience, plus all the other things. And there's all these amazing creators, whether you get the information from you or I, whoever, as long as they're trusted and they're giving you really good guidance. Because there are some influencers out there
that just wake up and decide I'm a money expert, blah blah blah,
and want to give terrible advice. You know what I'm saying? I wish I would have tuned in to that. And like you said, you have to face that fear. But we also can't be more ready for you than you are.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be ready, and it gets scary, right? It gets scary, and I think, I was just on a call earlier, for an interview of the trauma and money and how that associates our relationship with money. And she was asking me, do you think everybody has trauma with money? And I'm like, yeah. I was 100%, regardless, whether it's cultural, society, or socioeconomic, right? We have some sort of relationship with money and bad taste with money because of, the systems put in place. And so, I think I love hearing about your journey that you conquered those student loans. And especially now that people are fearing their student loans today. People are so scared of what's going to happen in October when they have to pay back their student loans, because everyone was hoping that Uncle Biden could get the student loan forgiveness plan approved. But y'all know how politics are.
Right.
Since I'm gay, I'm I trust no man. Never have, never will. Sorry. I just can't have no hope for nobody.
He was already counted out. Okay.
Yeah, from the very beginning, man. You just have to let a woman do the job, right?
Hey, look, we do it better. I will say. I will say.
Now, I want to dive into also just your app as well. So I just barely pitched my first app idea. It's digital banking for the next generación, so for the next generation of wealth builders, and it was a whole process in itself. I didn't even realize like what came into play for a fintech app, or just even just an app in general, and pitching to investors in the first place. That was a whole experience that was really new to me. So I would love to know a little bit more about your journey and how you started Much.
Yeah, no, and I'm so excited for you to be embarking on this journey. And I'm sure we'll dive into it later,
Yeah.
but the process has been very interesting, right? Because less than 2% of women, and it's even a smaller number for a woman of color, to get funding from venture capitalists. So you might hear me say the term VC. That's what it means, venture capital, for anyone listening that's not familiar with that term. And the process of creating this app. So in 2016, when I was starting to get sued, I had to immediately, overnight, like turn my financial habits around very quickly.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what was going to happen. Every time I got called, for my lawyer, my hands would be shaking. Like, are they going to take out all the money? Are my wages going to get garnished? Like, what's going to happen? Do I need to go into Queens County Court? That's where I was getting sued, and tell them I don't have all this money. Like, what happens if a judgment is put against me by the student loan provider? What happens? Like, I don't have the money to pay for this. So I had to quickly come up with a game plan, and I started trying to download all the apps. I was doing like everything, just trying to figure it out. And it took me a couple of weeks, but I ended up putting together this whole system of spreadsheets because I couldn't find like an app that actually catered to my situation, which was, it needed to tell me how to pay off the debt, do something, budget, because I needed to do that. I needed to do cash envelopes. I needed to do I needed to do all the things. And there was like Mint out there, but I had tried that in the past before. It just was not helpful. If you don't know what you're doing, I think the level of assumption with a lot of these apps are, we're going to throw data at you and we expect you to know it. I didn't know again, this is me studying formally finance. I didn't know how to create a budget. I thought a budget was just putting down your bills and spending the rest of the money. Like, I didn't know it was actually a tool that you could use to help you get towards your goals, right? So I'm like, what am I going to do with this data? Cool. I spent $300 on groceries. Like, okay, this month I'm going to try to spend $50. Like, and a lot of people do that, right? It's so wildly unrealistic. So I was figuring this stuff out, right? So I came up after a couple of weeks, a mad scientist. I went in, did my little spreadsheets because that's all I knew. I was working in finance. Spreadsheets were my jam. And I came up with this whole little system. So it was my zero-based budgeting framework. I baked that into one spreadsheet. Then I had my debt payoff, this whole spreadsheet. I did all these calculations, and I called it the debt attack pack, the budget attack pack. And then, I started selling this, and I was like, man, this is wild. Like, people are willing to pay for spreadsheets when there's free apps out there. Like, this is like really interesting. Ended up selling like a bunch of spreadsheets, just because I was like, if this is helping me, this could help someone else. Like, I'm sure. And it has helped. I get messages still to this day. People say, oh, I still use your spreadsheets. I'm like, okay, well, use the app now. Because it's literally
We upgraded.
the better version. The better version. So during that journey, I was paying off all the debt using these spreadsheets. And then I said, one day, similar to you, I was like fed up with my job. It was kind of golden handcuffs. It was keeping me there, but I was so incredibly unhappy. The industry is just extremely tough for anyone that's not, as in Hey Berna's words, that's not male and pale, essentially. It's very, very, very just taxing. During everything that happened during the summer with George Floyd, I would come into work and everyone's just like as if nothing happened. I would come off the elevator and see this article, because I worked at the time at like the oldest private bank in the United States. Come off the elevators, and there was an article that had the term is no longer used, I'll say that, for Black people, in the article from like the early, like 1900, I don't know. It was something, and every day I would get off the elevator and see this article, and I'm like, why do they have this up? I don't care if this is part of like the bank's history. Like, we're not there anymore.
We're not there.
So just all that, like going onto a floor, there's no acknowledgement about what's happening in the cultural climate, like nothing. Okay. So I'm like, I need to get out of this industry. And I really like spreadsheets, and I really kind of like this tech thing, but I'm not sure like it's for me. So I started dabbling before and after work. I was like, I'm going to try tech. Like, the only thing in my mind what tech was like coding, because I saw the traders on our algorithmic desk talking about Python, and that's a coding language, right? Yeah. So I'm like, well, that sounds interesting. Like, maybe, and the young kids next to me are learning Python. Maybe I can learn it. Maybe, you know, like, let me see if this has something to do with spreadsheets. Like, cool. So before and after work, I would get up like 5 a.m. And Yaneli would always say too, from Miss Be Helpful, another finance creator, she goes like, I remember seeing you posting receipts at like 5 a.m. saying that you're learning how to code. So, you know, I'd get up early before I go to work and start just dabbling in this. And I was like, oh, I really like this. This is similar to kind of spreadsheets. It's like you're figuring out problems. Like, I really like this. So paid off all of my debt, was teaching myself how to code. And then I was like, this is what I want to do. I really want to lean into this. And the reason why I want to lean into this is because I have this idea for this app in my head, and I can't afford to pay someone to build this. Yeah. A very helpful tool for for my audience, essentially, right? Yeah. That I really want them to be able to use and have access to. And like, this would be great if it could be free and all this stuff. So I was like, you know, F it. I'm just going to learn how to code. And essentially that's what I did. So I saved up a bunch of money. I was teaching myself how to code, and then I saved up a bunch of money. And again, here's the universe showing up, right? I was like, I'm not going to go into any more debt. But I want to learn how to code. I want to switch careers. This is all after the age of 30, by the way. So it's possible for any of you listening. I didn't write my first line of code until like 31, 32. Started learning how to code, and then I put it out in the universe. Like, I want to switch careers. I get a free scholarship to a coding boot camp.
Yes, we're here for it.
You know what I'm saying?
The universe knows.
It knows, in Connecticut. And I was scared to take the leap because I hadn't like hit my goal of like my savings yet. I was like, ooh, like I really wanted to try to like save 6 months worth of my side of expenses. At the time it was me and my partner, and now wife. I was like, I want to be able to like just make sure I can contribute, and this is like cool, yada, yada, yada. So I saved up like 4 months, and then I got the call from the universe saying like, hey, this scholarship, you got to take it, or it might not even exist like a couple months from now. So I was like, so I went ahead and did it. Super excited. Never been more happy in my life to learn how to code. And the first thing I did was like a stock app, because I was like, cool, I'm gonna start like building towards this goal and building towards this dream. And then long story short, like fast forward about 2 years. So I went through layoff. I started pitching my idea a little bit, like, hey, I got this idea for this app. And like, yeah, there's a bunch of like budgeting apps out there, but like this is why it's different, because I have the experience and I know that like the more so the psychological aspect of what it takes around money. And, you know, people assume that people know how to, you know, manage their money when they get on these apps. And this is why ours is different, and da 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 da. Again, then I got scared and I got a job in fintech, because I was like, okay, I got laid off from my first software engineering role. I needed to find some money. I was building this out while on the side while I was looking for a job. And then I got really scared. I was like, okay, I got to go back to the workforce, because now I'm like unemployed and like I need to bring in a paycheck. Worked in fintech for a year. And then last year in 2022, got accepted into Techstars. I had already applied to Techstars two times before this.
I've been looking into that.
Yeah, I had already applied 2 times before this, way in the past, though, right? And I've always wanted to be like an entrepreneur in terms of being my own boss and bringing something to life that could help hundreds of thousands of people.
Yes.
I just didn't know what that impact. Yes, there you go. I had no idea what that would look like. I've tried all these different businesses in the past, college, all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. Anyways, got into Techstars, and that was my journey. I know it was a very long-winded answer, but I think it's important to kind of see like the ebbs and flows. Right, right. Because anyone would have been like, cool, this is for me. I got the sign from the universe to go to the coding boot camp. And then, yes, I got a job before I graduated in the coding boot camp. And then, 5 months into my new job, I got laid off in the pandemic.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So that could have easily been my sign. This is not for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And you pushed forward and you executed. You delivered.
Yeah. Yeah. And it hasn't been, I will not say like this has not been without challenge. Like Techstars, getting into Techstars was a great milestone in terms of like getting funding to actually start building this so I could go full time into being able to start building this company and this app that is really impacting a lot of people. So it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah, no, I just want to congratulate you on this whole
Thank
entire
you.
process. For me, I don't know why, I just thought you were always in tech.
No.
I just always had this idea that you were always in tech just because of, you know, you were always with your computer. I feel like in your videos, I was like, I don't know. But that's amazing that you were also in finance. Wow, I feel like so much more connected to you. You have no idea. I'm like, oh, I have a lot of things to tell you now afterwards.
Yeah, I was in finance for almost 9 years. Yeah.
Dang, okay. Wow.
Literally up until I quit finance 2019.
Okay, before the pandemic.
Yep.
Yeah, dang, wow. It's crazy how our stories are so similar, but now, you know, you have this app, and I think it's based off of zero-based budgeting, right?
Yeah.
And so let's explain to the people what zero-based budgeting is.
Yeah, so the concept, and this is going to be ever evolving in the app, but the zero-based budget is really you like being proactive around your money.
Yeah.
So again, like we said kind of a little bit ago, that a budget is a tool, money is a tool, and you have to just be able to use these effectively for them to work for you, right? So a zero-based budget is a budgeting framework where you take your take-home pay, so that's everything after taxes. Basically, you put it, I'll explain it on like a piece of paper. You put it at the top of a piece of paper and you spend everything on paper. This is literally your spending list. And if you can flip that word budget on its head and say like, this is my spending plan, because essentially that's what you're doing. You're spending all of your money. You just want to make sure to be able to tell it where to go. So this framework gets you organized around your money in a proactive way, so you aren't wondering where all your money went, like how I used to be in the past. And essentially it requires you to just know your take-home pay. You can do this if you're variable income or you have a fixed income, you know what's coming in at the door every single day. But you take your take-home pay, put it at the top of a sheet of paper, and you spend it all on paper until you hit zero. And that's like spending it all just is creating budgeting categories for yourself or spending categories for yourself where you want to spend your money. And that could look like if you want to spend your money at Starbucks and you do that every single month, that's fine.
That's
you know,
fine,
like
yeah.
budgeting has gotten such like a bad rap because it's like, oh, it's so restrictive. And it essentially for the folks that do have the disposable income to actually budget, because budgeting is a privilege, right? Let's not get it twisted. Like you have to have some of the most master budgeters I know, my mom, single parent, like didn't have the disposable income. I mean, every penny had to go, like it was being stretched.
Survival mode.
Yeah, you know, survival mode. So it's very different. So I just want to make sure I caveat that too for individuals, because budgeting is a privilege. And if you do have the privilege to do it, this is a great way to start creating a plan for your money. And I like to say, like, you're not going to get in a car and go to an address that you've never been to without popping in a GPS. And this is literally a spending plan or a budget, whatever you want to call it, is literally the GPS for your money. You just tell it where to go, where you want it to go. And that could look like anything. And no one should make you feel any shame for putting down a shoe line item or a budgeting category for, you know,
or a weed line
boozy
item.
brunch. Weed, whatever. You know, like if that's what you spend your money on, that's what you spend your money on. I actually had a client that had a weed line item. It was like, let's go. You know, like
hey, you know, it's essential for most people.
Yeah,
you know,
it looks like.
And it has to be realistic. When I tell people the same thing, I'm like, you know, money is a tool, but you got to give it a job. Like you got to put it to work. You got to be in control versus the other way around, because I think in our human nature, and especially in this consumer society where literally everything is all driven by a psychology and the way that we spend and marketed to us. And that's why we do the things that we do. And that's why we feel like money controls us, but it's the system.
I love that.
Conspiracy theory.
Yeah, no.
Someone's going
true.
to be, but it's really true. If you literally look back at the way our consumer behaviors are, it's all because I saw this documentary because I was in the trauma of money program. And one of the things to graduate as a certified practitioner, you have to watch this documentary, and I'm going to have to put it in the show notes because I don't remember what it's called. But it talks about the way that consumer, like the way we were taught how to spend back in the day, like humans were taught how to spend in like, I don't even know, it was like the 50s, the 60s. And like bankers worked with psychologists and marketers in order to make people spend more money.
Oh,
it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And so when we spend money now, people think, oh my God, you know, I can't control my money. It's just, I don't know what to do. I'm just swiping. I'm like, first of all, are you on TikTok every single day looking at Amazon, things I need to buy? You know, and you're following influencers that are like, oh, buy this dress, look, da, 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 right? Or do this, buy these shoes. And it's okay. Don't get me wrong. It's just the influence and spending control that we don't have anymore because now we want things now.
Yeah,
now we want to
instant.
do things differently. And we don't realize that a budget could help us. A budget can help us. Give us back control with our money. And it's not supposed to be a diet. And a lot of people think of a budget as a diet. But it's not. It's supposed to change. Every single month. I tell my clients all the time, like, your budget is going to change every single month. It's not going to look the same because you're going to have different goals every single month. Every month you might be, you know, maybe, you know, let's say July is my birthday month. I'm going to spend a little bit more because it's my birthday.
Yeah.
Right. But August, you know, I might not have to spend anything. But if you're going to school in August, you're going to be spending a lot on, like, you know, if you have kids, crayons, everything like that, you know, getting them ready for school, back to school. So you have to realize that, like, there's different waves of spending and taking that control. And the thing that I do love about zero-based budgeting is that at the end of the day, your goal is to hit zero for the month. So what you make and to the very end of the month, you hit zero. So you know that every single dollar that you earn is put somewhere.
It's
doing something.
Yes. Because you work so hard for it. You are literally, like, you might as well make your money work harder for you than you work for it.
Yes, and it can give you a really good plan of like, oh shit, I actually have a lot of essential expenses, like, you know, rent, utilities, that's like 60% of my income. Oh shit, you know, it can really make you recognize things that you might need to change too in your lifestyle because lifestyle creep is a thing.
Amen. There we go. And it just helps you identify, like you said, like, you could have you shouldn't, I love how you say it gives you control. The control piece is because it hones in on the fact that you're being proactive and it should provide you with, like, guilt-free, basically, like, runway to do, like, you are the one sitting down, you are the boss, you are telling every single dollar where to go. You are planning this out. You are being intentional. Like you said, it's birthday month for you. Like, I'm going to spend it up. And that allows you to feel like it lifts this, like, stress and guilt off of you. Because if it's just kind of like mindless spending or impulsive, and which it happens, for all of us. We're human. It happens. Yeah. But the more that you can rein that in, it's the closer that you can get towards your goal. So even if you have 3 months of impulsive spending, you've had, 9 months of, like, okay, I've been intentional, I've been planning, and that at the end of the year looks like, oh, you're 20% closer to your goal now, instead of like 12 months of impulsive spending.
Or restrictive behavior where you're gonna bounce back to your spending, and you're probably gonna spend more because you feel like restrictive, because it also ties to, like, psychological aspect of money, because people will say, okay, well, if I have to restrain my money, then I can't have what I want, because growing up we didn't have money. And so now that I have a paycheck, I just buy everything that I want because I didn't have it, right? Yeah. And a budget sometimes might trigger that for people too. They're like, oh, well, if I have to be restrictive, then I can't have what I want. But again, like I was mentioning earlier, some people forget that you don't have to have everything right away. God damn, like, take your time, be patient, give yourself like 3 paychecks worth of saving, because sometimes someone was telling me, oh, I want to buy this thing. I forgot what it was, one of my clients, and it's $300. I'm like, okay, well, based on your budget, you do not have $300, but we can set aside like $100, and in per paycheck, and in 3 paychecks, you would have it. And she was guilt-free. And she was like, huh. And I was like, all you have to wait is like, 6 weeks. Can you do that? She was like, yeah, I don't necessarily need it now. Like, there you go. We
planned it out.
In a budget, $100
guilt-free,
every paycheck.
Stress-free.
Not on your credit card.
Debt-free.
Yeah. No, because that's what people do. They're like, oh, well, I don't have the money. I'm going to put it on my credit card.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get that. You want the points. So how are you going to pay it back? And that's the plan that they don't have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just planning, you can't plan for everything.
Yeah.
Literally, like, maybe perhaps it's because I'm type A and I do really love a plan. Even if it's a loose plan, like, you literally can't plan for everything. And I think that's another reason people, like, stop, like, oh, well, I don't want to do, you know, a budget or create a spending plan because it's restrictive, or like, I can't think of everything, so I'm just not going to do it. And it's like, you don't need to. Just have a loose plan. Because like I said, if you go back to the GPS, if you're trying to get to an address that you've never been to, you'd rather just burn up gas, not putting it in the GPS.
Yeah.
And then maybe perhaps you may or may not even get it to that destination. If you sit down proactively and start planning out your money and you use that as your GPS and you're like, okay, I'm being intentional around it, you're going to get to that goal, that place, whatever that looks like to you, for you, much faster.
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
And feeling more empowered.
Yes, the confidence. It brings back the confidence.
Yes.
And like you were mentioning, a lot of people think like a budget is something that you're going to be scared of. And in reality, it actually loosens the weight of everything that you've been feeling in life. Because most of the time, people are like, oh my God, I'm going to be in debt for the rest of my life. I don't know what to do. La, la, la. I'm like, okay, let's see how much money you're bringing in and how much extra money we can put towards your debt. So we run the budgets, right? And I'm like, okay, what's your income? What are your essential expenses? And lifestyle is always variable. And so I give them like, okay, let's stay conservative. So if you eat out a lot, I'm like, they usually like put $100 or $200 on eating out. I was like, that's a lie.
Yeah.
That's a lie.
Immediately.
I already know. It's because I can, you know, I always know my clients' behaviors. I'm like, it's like $400, $500.
Yeah.
Let's be real. But let's hit some goals and be conservative. Let's hit like 350, you know. Okay. And so when I talk to my clients about their budget and we see at the very end they have like $500, $400 extra or $200, I'm like, you
also,
have money.
That's an interesting question to ask. So where's this going?
Yeah.
So this is why it is so important to put it in a budget. You could throw back $400 in miscellaneous, and next month, if I ask you where it's going or where it went, you'll know. But right now, you have $400 that is just out there in the ether that you just wasted.
Spend, on whatever you feel like you want to buy, because that's that tendency of like, oh, I'm just going to buy it now because that's where those $400 are going, is to what you want to buy and not to your savings. Or maybe they're putting too much of their savings. I'm like, okay, it's okay, you know, if you have to reduce your spending on even your goals too, because sometimes, especially in this economy, lifestyle expenses are so high, and even your essential expenses just for utilities and housing and everything like that, because inflation just has caught up over the months, right? And even though it's not growing as much, it's still caught up, you know, it's still grown.
Outside costs like $500 every time you go out.
I can't go. You catch me inside. I am not going out there, bro. I moved out of my parents' house last year. After I had my own home, I had my own life, and then I sold my home because I was like, well, I have so much debt. I gotta sell
You're grown.
You know, I gotta sell my home, so I have to move in with my parents and start all over, you know? It's just part of adulting. And when I moved into my first apartment here in Dallas and realized that I just dropped $300 at Target on 20 things. And I was like, it was just Clorox, some toilet paper, you know. Necessities. And I literally cried. I was like, what the fuck is this? What is this? The pandemic really ruined it all for us, huh? Like, I don't know.
Outside's no longer free.
No. And I was struggling to find all them free shit. You know, I try to do, I'm like going to happy hour all the time now. I'm like, just like, you know, $5 margarita, I'll take it. Save some money. Or like some snacks, you know, whatever, buy one, get one. Yeah, on my birthday, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do anything too crazy because I already know budget tight, but we're going to do all the free shit. You know, I went to Subway, got my free foot long. I went to Dutch Bros, got my free coffee. I went to Starbucks, got my free drink.
That's actually good. You just gave me a good challenge to think about in terms of like it's not a no spend challenge, but what can you get for free challenge day? Like,
Yeah.
how can you do this whole week for free?
Yeah, no, use the system. That's why they take. Yes, use the point rewards thing that you signed up for and forget to use. Like on your birthday, a lot of stuff is free, like Firehouse subs, Krispy Kreme donuts. We went and this morning actually to get like our pack of donuts, and we gave it to our chiropractor. So
that's awesome.
There's so many things that you can take advantage of and you forget of, like I was talking to my grandma, she lives in El Salvador, and I was like, she's like, what are you doing for your birthday? And I was like, I'm going to go get my free cake and my free this. And she's like, how is it free? I was like, well, companies in the US do this thing in order to get you. It's like the rewards system, and then they give you free gifts. She's like, wow, that's so nice of them. She's just, from El Salvador. They don't do that, I guess, over there. But, but it's like even like little things like that can make a difference in just the way you think. Because once you start recognizing where your money is going, I personally feel like you don't always have to look at your budget as often, because now you're aware of where your money is going. You have that intention. And a lot of my clients, it takes maybe a month or two to kind of get used to budgeting and the concept, and maybe 3 months, it might take them a while. Some people it takes longer, and some people it's like right away, and that's okay. Again, everybody's journey is different. Finances are personal for a reason. But once they get the hang of it, they're like, oh yeah, now I know that like when I go to the store, I'm conscious that I'm trying to spend $100 here instead of going to Target and just blowing whatever I feel like I want, I'll buy. And I even tell them, one of the things that I teach is like spending with intention too, being very intentional about where your money is going. It doesn't align with your values and everything like that. And that's part of the budget process, because then you'll realize that you're spending money on stupid shit that you don't even want. Exactly. Or you don't even need, because then I tell them, look, imagine if you saved like $100 here and then invested $50 here, put it in the compound interest calculator and showed them what it would look like in like, 20, 30 years. And they're like, wow. So that $100 could be like $500,000 in like X amount of time. I'm like, yeah. Opportunity
and there's that debt paid down, like like, I don't know. And like you said at the beginning too, of like, you feel like you might be in debt forever. Like I've had people, and even myself, I thought I was going to be in debt forever. Yeah. You just plug it into a calculator. You kind of like face the numbers, and you have more agency over them when you have it down on paper. Like there's no such thing as like kind of like budgeting in your head if you've never just sitting down with the numbers once. Like I encourage people, like at least try it like one time, so where your baselines are at, right? Like that's what we use, and use much so people don't have to like figure that out. That was the one thing that I was like, a budgeting like app or money platform needs to be able to tell people, this is in this category, this is the average that you spent. So you're going to be able to make an informed decision about, okay, if I want to save like $10, $15 in this category every single month, then my realistic kind of target should be like X. So if I spend $500 on average every month on food, something that's going to be realistic and within my wheelhouse to do, because I don't have like let's say like a student loan lawsuit looming overhead, and I can save $10 or $15, then my new, category or my new spending limit's going to be for like, let's say 75. And I can try to aim just to save that $25 that I could put extra towards debt or extra towards my savings. And over the course of, however many years, this is what it could look like. Something so tiny, so small, can have such a big ripple effect.
Yes. People don't realize that. Even if you say $25 from every category or $10 from every category, that's even, you could get $100 out of somewhere, something.
That's exactly, that's what we show you. That's one. So we say, here's the new limit. You can adjust it, but this is what's realistic.
Yeah.
This is what it could look like for you. And then in the month, that means you will have saved $100, $200. On average right now, people are saving $85 a month. And that looks like closer to $900 over the course of a year. That $900, we show you like, if you pay $85 extra towards your debt, this is how much faster you can pay it off. Like easy.
Yeah.
And you're not doing, and we're talking about like going from a Starbucks category of $100 to only spend 90, or like try to aim to spend 95 in this category. Right.
And just one coffee less,
Just one coffee less over the course of a month. We're not saying get rid of it.
Yeah.
And some, sometimes like obviously that's going to be helpful depending on your goals or whatever. And obviously a heavy focus on increasing your income more so than like budgeting, right? But yeah, I just think like a budget is such a powerful tool if you can hone in, and you can eventually graduate from it when, you know, you feel like you're in a good spot. Like you said, like now you know your numbers, you're consciously aware of it when you go to shopping, like, okay, I'm going to aim to do 200 because I know that that's the budget. That's when you can do it, graduate and budget in your head, because you've done the work, you've put it on paper, you've been consistent, and now you can graduate from that. And then you go back to a budget when you are trying to reach your next goal or unlock a new level. Like, you don't have to be on a budget forever. It is just a great tool to use when you need it, and to know how to use it properly is like a game changer.
Yeah, it's all about recalibrating. It's all about, you know, being able to reset. And that's what I use my budgets for. And like now it's like more like a quarterly thing where I'm like, all right, based on my awareness and things that have changed. And also if there's like big changes, like I bought a new car, or if I did this, or if I moved, oh great, I have to redo my budget because now it's a whole different expense and a whole different, you know, way of spending my money. But I was going to ask you, does the app also add in like debt payment calculators, or how long it will take you to pay off your debt?
Yeah, so we have that. So that's literally, girl, everything that I needed, it's in this app. So I'm like, okay, cool. You're showing me that I could, if I stick with this spending plan that y'all created for me based on the way that I spend my money already. So you're not telling me to get rid of anything. You're just saying like reduce it a little bit. And again, we supplement the income piece by like providing webinars. So it's not just like elimination and reduction, because you can only cut so much at the end of the day,
you can
right?
only cut so much.
You can only cut so much, but income is sky's the limit with that. We say, okay, cool. This is how much you could save over the month. This is how much you could save over the year. Oh, and by the way, if you take that monthly savings, you can input all of your debt. And we say with that extra monthly savings, like, your current debt-free date is X based on what debt that you've added to the platform. If you take that $85, your new debt-free date will be Y. Oh, and by the way, you could pick whichever like framework you want to use. We have 2 frameworks and we educate you on that. It's on the platform instead of you having to go to like a debt payoff calculator and then like you got to go to a zero-based budgeting platform. I needed all of that to be packaged up for me to streamline from end to end. So I need to know my zero-based budget, how much extra money, like you said, at the end of all the bills and all that stuff, how much extra money can I get out of my budget to put towards my debt? And I actually need to see all of my debt in one spot. This was literally the tabs on the spreadsheet, okay? I had that little extra line item at the bottom, money left over. So I need to do something with that money. So I'll put that to 0 and then put it on my debt spreadsheet. Now we have it built in. So there's a calculator that already kind of shows you that proactively. And then you can play around with numbers too. If you want to go beyond whatever your saving plan says, like you can punch that in and it tells you.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's amazing, because like even Mint doesn't tell you how to pay off your credit cards or anything. It's just like Mint is all about just showing your transactions. And if you aren't taught how to manage or how to understand your budget or what these trends even mean, then it's you kind of get overwhelmed with the data and you're like, oh shit, I spend a lot of money on shopping, but what does that do for me?
And that's like the insight. That's the insight that I've been saying, that a lot of these platforms just get wrong because they approach it from a sense of, oh, we expect you to know what to do with your, and there's advanced people out there, right, that already know. They like to see their transactions, but our platform is more for the person that is either an active budgeter or passive like expense tracker who needs a little more guidance. So we take the guesswork out. Like, you don't have to figure out, okay, if I put all these categories, like, where am I spending my money? We literally say, hook up your bank accounts. We'll get all that data, and then we spit a spending plan out to you. We literally spit a zero-based budget out to you, and then you might have to tweak some things, right? Like, we give you the baseline. We give you the starting point. So again, instead of you Mint saying, okay, well, I spent $500 on groceries. What I used to do back in the day when I didn't know how to budget effectively, it was like, all right, cool. I'm going to spend $50 on groceries
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
And completely blow that, in 4 hours.
There goes that budget.
And then there goes that budgeting's not for me. That's dumb. I'm not going to do this. This is too restrictive. I don't know, whatever.
And then you go back to your old lifestyle.
Back to your old lifestyle. There's nothing like changing there. Yeah. So we were very rooted, much so in something very realistic for you. On the platform, we have what's called the spend reduction. You can go from 3% to 10%. You can only go up to like reducing how much you spend in various categories across the board, 10%. That's it. That is less than a Band-Aid. Some people try to do the 20. Like I said, those are real examples. Like, whoever's listening to this might be laughing about like, oh, 500 is not real. Like to go from 500 to 50 is not realistic. People do it every day. They blow through it and say, okay, budgeting's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah. People put this number and say, okay, well, I'm going to try your target. And then they go over and they're like, oh, well, budgeting sucks.
Yeah. Budgeting sucks.
But you were the one who did it. You're not being
realistic. Right. You're the one that did it. You're in charge of the spending plan. And that's why we give you, not only we tell you the average, we set up the baselines for you. So we say, based on your average, you've been spending $500 every single month on groceries. Try to aim this month for $470. And then across all those categories, you save this over the course of a month, this over the course of a year. Oh, by the way, this is if you have debt, this is what that can look like. Future is coming for a future kind of down on the roadmap is for your assets, because you can track your net worth on the platform as well. And we'll say, okay, if you can take that money and put it towards investing, this is what the compound potential will look like. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That will be amazing. Then I don't have to use the investor.gov's compound interest calculator and do guesstimates for my clients and be like, this is just because I teach people when they don't know about investing. I'm like, I'm just going to give you an average scenario of what would look like if you invested $50, $100 over 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And I give them all these examples and it blows their mind. And I was like, yeah, this is all the education they didn't want us to know.
Yeah.
This
by design.
By design. The system wasn't made for us. And as I said in my pitch, I was like, this system is bullshit.
I love it. Yeah. I want to just quickly ask you, tell me a little bit more about your vision and the pitch competition.
Yeah. So if you know a little bit more about my story, and for my listeners, you might know in my first episode, I kind of talked about my traumatic experience watching my parents lose their home, file bankruptcy, lose everything that we had, lose their business during the '08 crisis, after that. And I went to school to study finance for that reason, because my dad came in and was like, you got to be better than me. You got to want more in this life, take advantage of the system, because it was not made for me, and it wasn't made for us to succeed. And I took that literally and studied finance. So I had really good mentors that believed in me. In the community that I lived in, I was always the only Latina or the only person of color in the room sometimes. And so I had a mentor who was like, please don't drop out of school. Because during middle school, I wanted to drop out. I was like, I don't want to go. I want to be homeschooled. This isn't for me. La, la, la. She's like, no. Please, please, please. You're really smart. You're really, really smart. You have straight A's. Come on. There's an opportunity for you to go to college and high school. And long story short, I studied the finance, and one of my first classes was ethics, and that's where I learned about the '08 crisis and who was at fault. And it pissed me off when I learned that the big banks of America were just getting freaking greedy off people. Yeah. And that shit just made me angry, because then I'm like, okay, so Countrywide Loans was the loan provider my parents had. They were part of the problem, because they were practicing unethical. They had unethical practices in place to target marginalized communities.
Yeah, subprime, all that.
Yeah. So long story short, that was where this root of, the system is broken. Is okay, how are you going to solve it? But you're nobody, Leah. You're not going to do it. How are you? You're just Leah. You're from Southern Utah, first generation. You're queer. I don't know how you're going to figure that one out, but I worked for the investment bank only to confirm my answers, right? Yep. It wasn't made for me. It was not you didn't see a lot of people like me or, communities of color working with these groups. And so I was like, you know what? Okay, well, how do I drive impact? Because financial coaching is amazing. I feel like you can get one-on-one attention. You can really help people change their lives. And as I pursued my career in entrepreneurship, helping people and coaching them, because I didn't want to get into financial advice, like become a financial advisor. It's just there was a lot of regulation in that. And I didn't want to deal with investments. And I really just wanted to help my people. And my people hardly ever get to investing because they don't know how to manage their money, nor do they earn the income or the wages that they need to earn. Right. So long story short, I think it was the middle of last year. I had just moved here to Dallas and I was like, what's the impact here? I don't want to coach forever. Coaching is not my passion. I love it. I love helping people, but like, how can I scale this? Like, let's be realistic. When you think about a business as an entrepreneur, you're always going to have to think about scaling and what's the long-term goal here? Because you have to think about economic times where there's highs and lows and income might be tight as an entrepreneur, and especially this year for me. And I know we've talked about it. Income can be really tight as an entrepreneur when the economy is not performing well as well. When people don't have spending power right now, they've been restricting our spending power because interest rates are so high. So this is, we're in a tight place, right? So when I am also reading articles about how Bank of America, tech error, my clients didn't have their money one weekend. They're telling me all about it. They're like, Bank of America took my money, la la la. And I'm like, oh, found an article about this. It was posted everywhere. Many clients of theirs lost their money for like a few hours because of tech error. Then you hear, millions of individuals lose thousands of billions of dollars because they use traditional banks to save when they're missing out on potential interest with a high yield savings account.
And all these predatory fees.
Yes, and these predatory fees. And then you hear Bank of America again today, or like earlier this week, they just got fined because
doing the same thing, basically. This is what happened with Wells Fargo, if you remember, like the whole like fake accounts. Like that was the start of the fall. They had already fallen in a lot of books, right? But like that was the rise to the fall. And I'm like, how do they keep on doing this, right? So I get angry every time I see it, and it's because I think about my traumatic experience with my parents and them not understanding the financial system. And then I'm only can imagine those who have no idea about money, how it works, how the system works, when they don't see their money and they start freaking out, or all of a sudden they have a credit card that's not in their name, because that's one of the things that's happened with Bank of America. They were opening credit cards in names of people that they didn't even know that they had a credit card with the bank. Long story short, I know it's like very long, but that's where the passion came. And now we live in a day and age where you can now buy bank in a box service and present your UI, your user interface, and add it on top, your brand. And you can offer great services, insured services. They all have FDIC insurance, and to your community, to your people. And with all my research, our people need it. Financial education and digital banking. One of the things I said earlier was you should learn financial education at home or at school or at the place where you store your money. And if at home you can't learn it, if at school it's not it's not required, so you don't learn it, why can't the place where you store your money teach you? Right.
And so that's the whole mission with Riqueza. Currently, it's a financial coaching practice, but I just want to elevate it to the next level to drive impact too, because I am a strong believer that we need socially responsible banking institutions. We need to change the way that we've been doing this whole entire financial system is rigged. It's not made for us. It was not made for communities of color to prosper. That's why we don't understand the financial system or how money works or interest rates and all these things, because they made it so complex. And at the end of the day, we're all trying to just create our wealth. We're all trying to build our foundations here in this country. But when we have a system that's rigged or that we don't understand or that's not really advocating for us, because you pay $8 for your bank account, and then you have to pay overdraft fees, and then you're overwhelmed because you're like, how are you going to pay your overdraft fee, your monthly fee, and then you're negative.
Then your overdraft fee is the thing that causes you to overdraft more, which they tack on another fee.
Yeah. And if they would have taught you how to budget, or maybe if they would have taught you a little bit more about saving and using your saving wisely and not oversaving, there's so many things that could change. But it's not profitable, right? A lot of these institutions think about profit and big business and how they make more money. And that's how they, it's the capitalist country that we live in. And when I think back about my story and my drive and what I want to do on this planet, like I just want to have communities trust something, trust that money isn't evil, because 30% of Hispanic Latinx individuals are unbanked or underbanked because they don't trust the financial system. That is one of the biggest reasons. And the second reason is because they're sometimes undocumented, so they don't have access because of some banks don't take ITIN, which is the individual taxpayer identification number. So that already limits their access to banking. And so if I can't see the change, if I don't see anyone doing it, why not be the change, right? Similar to your experience. You had spreadsheets, you didn't see it out there. People loved it, and people wanted it. So you had to create it. Same thing here. People tell me all the time, my clients tell me all the time, what bank do I trust? What bank do I open an account with? Since Bank of America is not good, or Wells Fargo isn't good, where am I going to go?
Yeah.
So that's where I want to be that solution, because in Latinx and Hispanic individuals, we're like the fastest growing population in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
We have the largest spending power, largest GDP as just like even a community, and it's wild to think like that's how much power we have. But because we've been served, because we have been oppressed for generations, we now think that we have to stay in these levels, or stay in these levels of poverty. And even with Black and Latinx communities, it's just, we're so used to oppression. We're so used to it. And the system is rigged. The system is wrong for so many reasons for Black and Latinx communities, because we're both at the bottom of the wealth gap. We're together. We're struggling together, even though, we're not the same and we face different struggles. We still, from a wealth perspective, we're not that far from each other.
Right.
And so I just want to fight that, because coaching is great, posting content's great, but how can I actually change the world?
Move the needle. Yeah, I love that. Oh, I love that. And we have to talk more too about that. It's so interesting, this whole world, and now being on the side of this, the initial kind of down the road map for much was perhaps going towards the banking route, and how can we build in mechanisms and stuff like that. And that's still an idea out there, but a lot's changed. So
we're going to have to connect. Yes, for real. We're going to have to talk for sure, because I know I can't do this alone. And I know this isn't just for me. This was never about me. This was about changing the next generations of me.
Amen.
Because I've gone through my own pain, and I know so many people my age and older have gone through similar pains. I've worked with them, thousands of people I've talked to, and to only hear the same or similar stories makes my heart break. And so,
and it shouldn't have to be that way. And
it shouldn't.
Not in the day and age that we live. It's just mind blowing that we're still. I mean, outside of all, not outside of, that's the biggest thing. It's the systemic stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm almost so tired of these conversations. It's why are we still having to have these conversations? Yeah. And that's all by design. And, I think you and I and other founders and other people on this journey are trying to disrupt that. Yes, we're fed X, but really it's Y. Throw all that trash out, because they want to keep you oppressed. They want to keep gatekeep this information. Banks don't want to teach you, because you said it's not profitable for them.
Yeah.
It's just not.
It's just,
and we're trying to change that. And I love that. I love that for us.
But when in reality, when our communities are really profitable because of their spending power, and that's why Latinx is trending this year, it's so annoying. It's so annoying. But here we are. We're going to disrupt the industry. So, Carmen, where can people find your app? Where can they download it?
Yeah, so right now, for women specifically, you can get free access through the partnership that we have with Secret Deodorant. So if you go to www.usemuch.com/secret and enter the code SECRETMONEYMOVES, you can get access to the platform for free $99 for 1 year. We have amazing webinars in terms of things like credit, increasing your income, that's coming soon, investing 101, investing 102, amazing women creators, all people of color, which I absolutely I love it for our platform. That's where you can go to sign up for free. And just if you identify as a woman, that's where you can go. Other than that, you can download the app just by searching on Android or iOS, Much Budgeting app. So you just put that into the search bar in the App Store and you'll be able to find that. But yeah, that's where you can get information on the app is just www.usemuch.com. Go and check us out. Again, it's created not by the male and pale. It's somebody that's been in the experience. I'm creating a product and have created a product by somebody like I am personally somebody that has gone through this, whereas I think a lot of fintech and the reason why they aren't serving any of our communities and can't reach our communities for the reason of they're created by founders that have never in their day in their life never experienced it and aren't even in touch or trying to really be in touch with the communities that they're trying to reach, even if it's like, oh, we have a diverse mission. That's not the case that I've seen, especially now being on the other side of this, being a full-time founder and like really seeing these organizations that are getting funded. It's like, wait a minute, we're like almost the same and you're getting funding and you've never even had this problem, but you have this whole team of individuals from MIT that maybe
that validate your experience, I guess.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey, but that's where you can go get the information, and then also follow my creator page, Make Real Sense, with a C, Sense, CENTS.
Clever.
That's where I'm at. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Wifey came up with that one. I actually didn't come up with the name. She gets the credit.
Yes. If it wasn't for Zany, I wouldn't do a lot of these things. She was setting this whole thing up. So thank our partners for all of our success.
Yes.
But I was going to ask you, I always ask my guests this, what does riqueza mean to you? And riqueza means wealth. So.
And thank you because I'm half Spanish, but non-Spanish speaker. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
So to me, wealth, and this might sound like woo-woo, but honestly, again, this is like coming from somebody that's been there. Mm-hmm. I think wealth is having access to an abundance of things that bring you joy, which ultimately may give you access to means or resources to essentially deal with the stressors of life. Mm-hmm. And when I say like an abundance of joy, it's like, okay, like I feel wealthy because I have my health after just going through something like with the healthcare system. I had like a major surgery in March and I feel like abundantly wealthy for that reason. I have my health, but also I've had an emergency fund and savings that helped me deal with the stress of that surgery, which was loss of income, having to pay the medical bills, so on and so forth. So I think like at a very high level, wealth is just having an abundance of things that bring you joy that can ultimately deal with the other side of that coin, which is like the stressors in life.
Yeah.
And money.
Of course. Oh, thank you so much for everything. Everyone who's listening, make sure to share this episode with your friends, your besties, your tías, your primos.
Yes.
Spread the word. Download the Use Much app. Get on your budgeting. Don't be afraid. There are resources for you. There's people like us trying to share the knowledge through experience, right? We don't want you to go through what we've gone through. So thank you so much, Carmen, for being a guest. And we'll see everybody next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.